critically ill, and you see them and you reflect on life.
Sure.
Especially when you know who they are before they were taken there. You will understand that, look, we are nothing on earth. And you must also appreciate the fact that you came from somewhere. If you have ever been to the cemetery and you've seen people being lowered into the grave, then you can really begin to appreciate
yes.
God. That's what I am doing now.
It's true.
There's a very good friend of mine, Lydia Opoku Ahene. She has always been doing wonders in my life. I want to say good morning, Auntie, and thank you. She's a pharmacist, actually. I won't say more than this.
Stay on that. There's also a very strong woman I know, and I know she's watching right now. Mayu, thank you for the support. And I thought
when I went for a woman, you go for a man.
Well, today we are still on International Women's Day.
Okay.
And she's actually my neighbor. She works with EcoBank, and her husband was complaining that every time she's running all over the place when it's 6:30, and when he asked why, she would say, because I want to watch the show.
Of course, and the show is live on Facebook and YouTube. Razor TV is also our partner. That's where you can find us. You can always join the conversation 020-866-7000 or 0556-999. Join us immediately. Let's have a conversation. In fact, the budget was read last Friday.
Yes,
I was impressed.
and everybody has been talking.
When I sat, I was in Parliament. I was there and I monitored proceedings live. I didn't watch it on television, and I enjoyed the atmosphere. And when the majority leader was doing the presentation, I understood that, look, it is something that can be very simple, but it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of experience, and he delivered it. And the House showed respect to him as majority leader. There was no really that kind of heckling you would have witnessed if Ken Ofori-Atta was in Parliament. And so, apart from that, I also had opportunity to go through the budget statement. There are some exciting or controversial policies being introduced. Some are saying government is milking us for profit. Others are saying that, look, it is a necessary evil because at this time when government cannot bring money from outside, or we are complaining that government is borrowing too much, the only alternative is to impose taxes. There's another one there. I don't know.
That's a very wise decision.
There's another one there. Is it rent, a policy to set up a facility that will, or a scheme that will give loans to you and
I think it's loan
houses.
Assistance scheme, something like that.
How do you find that?
Well, I think that yesterday I chanced on Talking Point on GTV, and a policymaker, Peter Tekbe, he said that he feels this is like robbing Peter to pay Paul, and in a way I agree with him, because then I always say that if my friend comes to me to ask for a loan to pay rent, I'm never giving that out. Because there's two things. It's either you will not be able to pay me or you will come back for more. Because if you pay rent, it's not an investment. Now, if I give you a loan to pay your rent, it means you need to be able to pay me and raise money for the subsequent one. How are you going to be able to do that?
What type of rent are you talking about? Because I believe that this rent they are talking about is for where they can house you and I sleep. It is not the facility you are talking about. Perhaps you are looking at a shop that somebody
I'm looking at. If it's a shop, then at least you have a fair idea. If it's a shop, if the person is taking the money to rent a shop, then there is some sort of hope, because the person is going to work with the money. So in a way, it's a form of investment. But if it's where you're putting your head, that is not an investment.
The money
is not. The money is not coming back.
I'll meet you here after pause for 3. I'll meet you here. This debate will continue. We'll be back after that.
Hello and welcome. I had an experience with a young man some years ago. He had come to tell me about how uncomfortable he feels hanging around his new neighbors. Alfred, the young man, had come to visit a month after he moved into a student hostel on admission to the university. He did not understand why his roommate likes, prefers, and goes for almost the opposite of everything he wished for. As an example, while Alfred, preferred having a cup of tea with bread for breakfast before lectures, he wakes up to find his roommate cooking rice as early as 6:30 a.m. Alfred says he wakes up sometimes to find his friend warming some stew for a meal of banku. He told me that even though he never questioned his friend, he had a problem with the kind of food his friend takes in every morning. What surprises him is that he never dozes off in class despite the heavy meal. Alfred, who narrated his dislike for his roommate's choices, recounted how he prepared oats with toasted bread to share with his friend. But he thanked him for the offer and went ahead to eat his banku and rather stored the oats in the fridge. According to Alfred, he had a wrong roommate and wanted my support to get his auntie to do something about the hostel or help change his roommate. His main reason was that he realized that he started eating rice for breakfast and sometimes ate oats in the afternoon. I looked at Alfred with a good smile and asked him, "Do you now realize how boring your hostel life would be if your roommate behaved just like you? Do you also agree that you would have learned nothing new if you had a roommate just like you?" I guess that got him thinking. The honest truth is that until we cannot be alive on earth as a result of how different the people we tend to meet are, we should be ready to respect and appreciate differences. You can actually bring people to the right side of life by accepting their differences and not rejecting them. One corporate office can sit 7 people of different tribes and sexes, including religion. They can find so many reasons why they cannot coexist, but they can find only one reason to coexist, that is to respect each other's differences. This is a former American President, John F. Kennedy, who said that if we cannot now end our differences, at least we can help make the world safer for diversity. People may be different just because you are also different. Embrace and respect differences in various contexts and embrace diversity. Thank you and goodbye.
Yes, so let's embrace diversity and make this world a better place. Thank you very much, Obobia. Today she was in jeans.
Yes.
And I
she's
saw her
always
in
looking
film.
nice.
Yes, I admire her. I admire her so much.
Eric, be careful.
And happily, she's a very good friend of mine. Good morning, Stan. I believe you are also feeling fine this morning. Of course, all those friends of ours who bring this production together. There's somebody I call Kikim.
Yes.
I understand why he's kicking.
Yes, I like calling his name.
There's another one called Malik.
Yes, and there's another one called Kofi.
And Bismarck.
Yes, and Ima.
I'm very happy, excited this morning. In fact, we're talking about this rent issue. And it's a good idea. But there are questions to be answered.
Yes.
What will be the criteria for disbursement? 2, what will also inform how government will identify those who really are in critical need? 3, is it going to be monitored by an independent body so that it is not politicized? Don't forget, when the COVID-19 ration was being distributed, it got to a stage when we entered the political season. There was this conversation that, oh, if you vote for the other side, they'll come and take the money. The other side was saying, if you take the money, chop it, because I won't take it from you. It is Ghana money. We have seen all these things unfolding in this country. 100 million cities as seed capital is huge. It can build hospitals, it can furnish health facilities, it can furnish schools. And so when we don't manage this money properly, it will simply go waste. And that is where I agree with Abena that it might come back to haunt us if we take this money and misapply it by giving it to cronies. And so Parliament must actually scrutinize this particular bill, because the truth is there are lots of us, including me, who may go out there to borrow money, to beg people for money to rent a facility. And the question is, when that money is given to you, are they going to consider you because you work in the public sector, or you work in the private sector, or you are on your own, but you must live in a house? And what will be the priority like? There are lots of questions we have to ask. And Abuna, the budget also talked about taxes.
Yes.
I spoke to a few MPs. I'm sure during the newspaper review segment you'll be hearing them. And one group on the minority side was virtually saying it is about time Ghanaians have to tighten their belt because the system will be difficult. But the majority says, look, it looks like you don't want to appreciate where we are. COVID is real. COVID is swallowing countries. The US president, for example, is approving, or maybe the Senate has approved a budget of about 1 point something trillion to cushion those who are poor in America. And in Ghana, we don't have that money sitting somewhere. And you and I have to cop something small for government to turn around. I don't know your opinion on this.
Yeah, but that is where the problem is, because again, people have lost their jobs. Others haven't even been paid since the lockdown, and then others have got their salaries slashed down. Also, commodities, the price of commodities are increasing. So if this is happening, there's going to be suicide. Well, this is suicide.
Lots of conversations. You have the daily graphic.
Yes, I have the daily graphic. I need a breather. Right, now on the first page, it says here that confronting piracy in Gulf of Guinea. Now, Ghana, UK scale up action. Now, this is to help with the what's it called? Shipment into the country. At least this will bring some sort of money into our pockets. Now, it says difficult times ahead, but embrace 2021 budget. This is coming from economists advising Ghanaians. Also, it says here that Ghana Health Service trains funeral homes on COVID-19 burials, while NLA reintroduces live draws. What do you have, Eric?
I have the Ghanaian Times, I have the Inquisitor newspaper, and the Business and Financial Times. I want to start first with the Ghanaian Times. On the front page, good news for the power sector. It says 50 megawatts boost for national grid as Bui Power generates more solar energy. The other stories on the front page, police impound 60 motorcycles in Accra, and pastor grabbed for swindling 4 people of 16,059 cedis. That's how it appears on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. I want to read the stories on the back page, which has to do with the budget. Government extends free water, electricity to lifeline consumers up to June, and over 400,000 Ghanaians receive COVID-19 vaccine jab. So look at the back page of the Ghanaian Times and you read all. But the center spread has more on energy, and of course, this story should be of interest to all. It says survivors of domestic violence advised to pursue justice in all cases. I talked about the pastor who has swindled 4 people for 16,059 cedis. I want to show you his face. Maybe it's your pastor. So there it is, where my finger is. That's the pastor. Look at him carefully, and if you know him, just remind yourself that he's one of the quack pastors around town.
You know, one of the issues we are facing, and I've heard about, you know, a handful of people say that Africans are notoriously religious. I think it's about time that we started discerning for ourselves and stop moving from one church or one pastor to the other. It's becoming unbecoming. I have a personal experience with this, and I cannot talk about it.
Then why did you mention it?
But
then why did you mention it?
Okay, so a friend of a friend.
Okay.
Now, well, my other brother, since December, January, was going in and out of coma. And later we found out that it had to do with hypertension. And he's been getting the symptoms, but he hadn't even been paying attention to it. I know he doesn't have a healthy lifestyle. My brother will eat anything nice.
So you
understand? And then this happens, and his wife calls me and is telling me about it, telling me that my elder sister brought them plantain and they ate, and this is, I'm like, Jesus Christ.
From where you have started,
yes,
it will be a long story.
It will.
So I understand why you don't want to talk about it.
Yes, I
have the Inquisitor. Can I go ahead?
I have the Chronicle. Please, quickly, let me do that, and then you can do the Inquisitor. Now, it says that first deputy ministerial list out. Richard Ahiagba heads for communication, and Dr. Inshia Asari reshuffled to health ministry. Also, I think last week you did that front page story where the military persons posed as robbers,
allegedly involved in a robbery or something like that. Looks like the Ghanaian forces is denying their military personnel.
We'll see.
I've seen a formal statement issued which is suggesting that the publication created the impression that they are active military officers, and they said they are not.
They are not.
What is the
Actually
Chronicle
suspected
saying?
that, but it says here that suspected military armed robbers remanded, and also it says Ghana is second glaucoma endemic country in the world, whilst NLA again reintroduces daily live lotto. But some people, some Ghanaians actually react to the government's budget, and they are saying he is kind-hearted. Okay,
the Inquisitor newspaper also has something on NLA, and this one says firing of Osei Amiel. NLA goes agog, and government keen to revitalize tour. Napo reveals. Remember, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh is now the Minister for Energy. So on the front page, you see the NLA story, and then government keen to revive Tor Napo revealing, also captured here. And then Sango Dele wins Young Global Leaders Award, and CSR at its best at Down West East to have astroturfs from McDan Group. So these are stories on the front page of the Inquisitor newspaper. Let me do the Business and Financial Times. Bank of Ghana gets tough with DAD check issuers. Issuers to be placed under 3-year surveillance, banned from issuing checks for 3 years, banned from receiving credit facilities. Reviving the economy. Budget introduces new taxes, revises existing ones upwards. NHIS VAT flat rate up by 1%. New sanitation and pollution levy. Fuel prices to go up by 5.7%. Banks slapped with 5% extra income tax. Road tolls revised. And new gaming policy introduced. All looking for cash. And these are captured on the front page of the Business and Financial Times. So there they are. And the back page says NIC donates 500 GOTA funds to police service to check fake motor insurance. So there it is, GOTA. I never knew that's the pronunciation. I always said Gonta. Gonta funds. You know, I'm from the water region. So Gonta.
Please don't generalize this. I don't think they will be happy about that. Now on the front page quickly of the Daily Dispatch, it says here that concluding details of the 2021 budget. Now 2020 parliamentary results, that's 44. Now it says here also Captain retired Kojo Chikata's statement to the National Reconciliation Commission. Now from the 2021 budget, fuel prices to increase by 5.7%. My last paper, which is the Herald, says that economists predict more hardship for Ghanaians. Insist Akufo-Addo's 2021 budget is only taxes and levies. Now, CID investigator in Opunu case leaves deep cracks in his criminal trials, whereas disappointed Great Ampon advocates military takeover because democracy not helping us.
So that's it on the front pages of the papers. Wisdom Hede Joma is here in suit because he has a flat tummy and so he can close the buttons to present the news. They'll be back after this short break.
Welcome back to the morning update on TV XYZ. This program is proudly brought to you by X Natural Mineral Water, simply natural. And of course, my makeup is Black Secret Makeup. We've gotten to the part where he's here, he's dancing. Wisdom Hede Joma gives us details of some of the headlines that we have discussed. Good morning, Wisdom.
Good morning, Habina. It's
How
Monday.
How are you doing?
I'm
Do you
good.
see his flat tummy?
Who's baking?
It's like you don't eat at all. What do you have for us this morning?
Well, so I'll be telling you about Parliament, who is wrapping up the post-budget debate already.
Yeah.
And amidst concerns that we're going to have more hardship. But government says that the taxes introduced are necessary evil. So I'll be telling you about that. Now, the National Labour Commission also has to move in to avert that particular threat issued by the telcos to embark on a strike action. Remember, sometime way back it happened, and there was some disturbances. They are praying that it doesn't happen this time again. Now, Kodeo has also issued a report to the Electoral Commission asking that there must be the need for consultative analysis before further future elections. And then also I'll be telling you about the demolition exercise, which is going to happen this morning at Ketia to make way for the market project, and other stories coming up this morning.
Take us away.
Many thanks for your time this morning. We'll begin the bulletin with a very disturbing development as the rain set in. And the only health center serving Nswaim and other farming communities cannot serve the sick if the Bosomfreho district in the Ashanti region does not move in immediately. Now, TVXYZ News has also learnt the disaster affected a school and a facility serving the police in that part of the area.
The only health center serving the Nsuayim and nearby farming communities in the Ashanti region is already a dilapidated structure. The storm, which lasted few hours, ripped parts of the roof off. A holding room for patients with severe cases has been emptied as officials salvaged what is left with the hope of immediate support from the Bosome-Freho District Assembly to keep the facility running. The storm also left the only school building in this community partially destroyed. The entire roof is gone and need immediate reconstruction before pupils can be allowed in class. A new structure built recently was equally not spared. TVXYZ News has learnt a facility serving as a police center has also been damaged.
Now, the forecast by the Ghana Meteorological Agency says part of Ashanti, Eastern and Western North will continue to experience downpour. It says isolated thunderstorm will sweep through part of the southern Ghana with rains over most places this week. Now, brace yourself if you live in those low-lying areas to save yourself and your property. We'll still stay a little longer in the Ashanti region because traders who defy directives to relocate from a side earmark for the second phase of the Ketia market project will swallow their own pills this morning. Now, a task force is moving in from today to forcibly eject and demolish any structure on site. The details are in this following report.
Late last year, the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly and the Ashanti Regional Security Council began engagement with traders whose shops will be affected by the Ketia Phase 2 project to relocate. But that was met with stiff opposition. Earlier attempt by the security task force was resisted as some of the defiant traders angrily pulled down barricades at the Kumasi Central Market. Other traders at the Efia Kubi Market also threatened to resist attempts to relocate Central Market traders to compete with them. Some of the traders who claimed they had been granted permission by the previous Metropolitan Chief Executive to ply their trade vowed to defy a 5-day ultimatum to move to a temporary location by yesterday, March 14. The frustrated traders claimed the mayor secured that pavilions for them.
The reaction of the traders 10 years ago. For how long can we be entertaining such things in order not to fail the market? anytime you want to send people there, they will pop up, and after that they will vanish. But now the assembly has taken a decision, and the decision is that this time we want to fill the market for complete 1 good month. What we did was that every morning we will go there, take a shot, and look at the number of occupants of the market. And we did that consistently for 1 good month. So now we know those who were there trading.
The Ashanti Regional Security Council is now moving in this morning to secure the area for the project to start. Chairman of the Ashanti RegSec, Simon Osei-Mensah, has vowed to ensure all earmarked spaces are cleared, including shops and sheds, which will be demolished. Ghana risks losing over 258 million euros loan apportioned for the project if it further delays.
Now, Ghana's Telecoms chamber will be hit if the National Labour Commission fails to address agitation among workers. Now, the telco and IT professional unions made up of telco engineers and technicians engaged by Huawei Telecommunications and Technologies to manage technical operations of MTN, Airtel Tigo and Vodafone are fighting for pay increase and other conditions of service.
Last Friday, staff of the various telecom companies served notice they may be forced to suspend services beginning today over poor conditions of work. Though the National Labour Commission has responded immediately, begging them for time to resolve the issue, it is under pressure to carry out the action as a bargaining chip. The threat to shut down Ghana's telecoms system follows a deadlock in salary negotiations between the union and the management of the 4 subcontractors who have been engaged by Huawei Technologies Limited to maintain the technical operations of MTN, Airtel, Tigo and Vodafone. The Telecom and IT Professionals Union, also known as TIP, made up of telecom engineers and technicians who manage the key technical operations, has officially notified the National Labour Commission and the telcos. In the letter dated March 12 and signed by Israel Edem Agbegbo, General Secretary of the Union, the 4 subcontractors, Limfra Ghana Limited, MP Infrastructure Ghana Limited, Remy Ghana Limited, and Reliance Personal Services have refused to enhance their remuneration over the years despite huge profits declared annually by the telcos and Huawei. The union is proposing a 20% pay increase, but management has logged its offer at 3% after initially offering a 0%. The National Labour Commission has directed the SBCs to revise their stance to prevent a national crisis. In October 2019, a sit-down strike that lasted few hours after a deadlock in negotiation almost crippled the country's telecom operations. TVXYZ News will keep you updated.
Now let's turn attention to Parliament. Over the weekend, MPs converged at the Volta Regional Capital for a post-budget workshop ahead of their debates beginning late this afternoon. Now critics have slammed over new taxes they fear will impose more hardship, but government insists it's a necessary evil and not robbing Peter to pay Paul. Now in the following report, TVXYZ News engaged some MPs for their reactions.
The 2021 budget, according to Majority Leader and Caretaker Finance Minister Osei-Mensah, who presented it on Friday, reflect a resilient economy in spite of COVID and proactive measures to cushion Ghanaians create opportunities for accelerated growth. The 2021 budget will, among other things, be introducing a 1% VAT COVID-19 levy and a 1% on National Health Insurance levy as part of revenue mobilization. It will also approve the increment of road toll, gaming tax, sanitation and pollution levy, or what some call Bola tax, 5% financial sector cleanup levy, and what government described as the energy sector recovery levy of 20 pesos per litre on petrol or diesel. Ranking member on the Energy Committee shares similar positions of very difficult times ahead. He argues there is not serious investment in key sectors of the economy, including energy, transport and agriculture.
In 2020, we predicted it. They were spending like there will be no tomorrow. They were spending as if we wouldn't have a moment like this. And because of the elections, they went over gear, they went out of board, they spent so much. And now that they've realized that there's a huge gap, that the debt to GDP is not sustainable, they've come out with a plethora of taxes. This is a government that came on the bandwagon of moving from transaction to production. Now they are moving back into so much taxation. This year alone, in just 2 months, we've seen about 9% increment in petrol prices, about 4 times. Now you're putting all these taxes on petroleum products. And when you put such taxes on petroleum products, it affects everybody. Truck drivers will be affected, passengers will be affected. So clearly, we've eaten our cake as a country with the reckless expenditure of this government.
NPP MPs are rejecting critics describing the budget christened "Here," meaning we are going forward as killing and will bring more hardship. They insist it's not robbing Peter to pay Paul as in reliefs, but a wise decision.
If a 10 pesos levy on a liter of fuel is what is going to help in cleaning the environment for all to live in a healthy environment, then I'm in full support of it. If the reliefs that have been given to businesses is what is going to help them revive their businesses and for the economy to grow, then I'm in full support of it. And this is a balanced budget that has been well thought through, that is obvious.
COVID has tipped several countries into recession. The impact on our economy was very devastating. Okay. But the president has steeled the economy against all these vicissitudes.
I can tell you that this amnesia, this pathetic blindness is sad. Even in the United States of America, the consequences of the COVID disaster is obvious. Biden is secured $1 trillion plus to what? Resuscitate an economy that was otherwise doing well.
But former Deputy Finance Minister Kesel Atoforsen, who is also ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament, strongly disagrees.
My brother, I've never seen one single budget with the introduction of so much tax policies like this before. President Akufo-Addo is very insensitive. But I want to tell him that, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President, please distinguish between your mess and the COVID-related mess. COVID has not devastated this economy that bad. Yes, it has some impact, but you cannot blame your mess on COVID. And that is why in the coming days, I will take some time to analyze pre and post-COVID, and so that Ghanaians will appreciate what COVID has done to our economy. Because the president and the government is taking a mick. They are taking Ghanaians for granted. And that isn't fair.
Meanwhile, the Speaker of Parliament is fighting for more funds. He has served a strong notice any attempt to cap the allocations to Parliament and the judiciary without recourse to their roles as second and third arms of government will not be countenanced.
Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin was blunt. He seemed very concerned and raised the subject twice. He is against the decision by government targeting the allocations for Parliament and the judiciary. He explained that just as the executive, Parliament and the judiciary, the second and third arms of government, must be accorded equal priority. He was emphatic, quote, "We can no longer allow the executive to be running amok without any checks and balances. I am sure this is sufficient notice. I have seen an indication of what is alleged to be ceiling for those arms. I am not going to take that." He threatened to ensure Parliament fights back if government feels advised to revise what is captured in the 2021 budget.
I reiterate my earlier point that His Excellency the President should reconsider the recommendation that he's made to me for Parliament and the judiciary. A very low ceiling. That ceiling is below the belt. And I want to pass this through the Minister of State responsible for the Ministry of Finance and with His Excellency the Vice President to take this on board. That is totally acceptable by Parliament and the judiciary.
Let's do some election-related stories, and the Electoral Commission has been advised to begin processes to redeem its battered image following the outcome of the 2020 elections. Now, the Coalition for Domestic Election Observers, CODEO, in its final report on the just-ended election, strongly recommends that the inclusion of CSOs, the media, for appropriate reforms to help deepen stakeholder and trust for the public perception regarding the Commission's work.
The management of the 2020 elections has left a blot on the credibility of the Electoral Commission. The decision by the Supreme Court to protect the EC chair from being cross-examined on critical begging questions has largely influenced public perception. Unlike previous elections, the 2020 exercise saw the largest number of fatalities, 8 shot dead, others maimed by security personnel walking free amidst fears of worse to come in future elections based on events that unfolded at the coalition centers. CODEO has called on the EC to carefully reflect on its election results management process and make appropriate reforms to help deepen stakeholder trust and public confidence. In doing so, CODEO is proposing that the Commission adequately involves relevant stakeholders such as political parties, civil society organizations, the National Commission for Civic Education, security agencies, the National Media Commission, the media, among others, for their input. It is not clear if the recommendation in CODEO's second and final post-election observation report issued last Thursday is informed by the false impression claimed about the ad hoc committee of eminent persons virtually made up of head of influential bodies on organizations to mislead the public. CODEO is also calling on the judiciary to expedite action on various parliamentary election petitions pending before the courts. It called on the Inspector General of Police to update the public on investigations into the electoral violence. CODEO released its first post-election observation report on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021.
And before we go, the National Democratic Congress communications officers across the country have served notice of their resolve to prevent their boss, Sammy Gyamfi, from any group or persons. Now, this follows threat by the leader of the majority group to engage leadership to haul him before the Privileges Committee for contempt of Parliament, and says that the majority leader and minority leaders will be involved. There's more in this report I put together.
The joint release by regional communication officers follows subtle attempt by the NPP and their MPs to influence Parliament to haul Sammy Gyamfi before the Privileges Committee. The communicators say their sources suggest few NDC MPs are equally fueling this. While the communicators agree their national representatives may have gone far, they will not countenance what they describe as malicious threats. The development stems from Mr. Gyamfi's protest letter against the confirmation of appointees, in which he directly accused the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu, and Chief Whip, Alhaji Muntaka Mubarak. They describe Majority Leader Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu's recent notice to drag Sammy Gyamfi before the Privileges Committee over bribery allegation as impotent. Mr. Mensah-Bonsu had hinted that leadership of the House would meet and decide. But the NDC communicators in their joint statement said, quote, "It sounds quite ridiculous that Honorable Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu lurks around hoping to prey on the disagreement within the NDC to settle personal scores with the young, brilliant lawyer," unquote. The minority group in Parliament is not happy about the attacks by some national officers and grassroots base. It admits flaws and has promised to correct them going forward. The Functional Executive Committee of the party has also called for truce and effort to rebuild confidence within the party.
And that'll be it. But before I go, Abena, You know that there's some amount of money, 100 million cedis allocation for rent. Government says that they're going to give that to persons in need of dire, money for rent. I'm sure it's good news for you and some people, because I earlier heard you say that you're not interested in lending money to persons who will be asking for it for rent.
If you come to me to ask for money to pay rent, to be honest, I don't see how you'll be able to pay back, because it's not an investment. It's not going to grow back. But anyways, today is not about my opinions. I'll be talking to Frederick Opoku, who is the Secretary General for the National Tenants Union of Ghana. So he will tell us.
Oh, there's a union like that?
Yes.
Wow.
You see, you didn't even know. That is a challenge. So yes, if you're renting, then two things are involved. Is either you're able to pay your rent or you're not. Now, if you belong to the not, then you might want to stick and stay. We'll be right back.
We are one man short. Should we invite him?
Yes.
It be old cargo. Can I join you guys?
Yeah. Always drink fresh, natural mix, mineral water.
Still got it. Always keep hydrated naturally. That's my secret.
Manufactured with the primary aim of preserving nature's finest minerals necessary for a healthy mind and body. X Natural Mineral Water. Simply natural.
Welcome back to the morning update. Again, this show is proudly brought to you by X Natural Mineral Water, simply natural. A lot of times you see or hear that people are depressed, and if they tell you the truth or if they confide in you, you'd find out that primarily the issue has to do with them not being able to pay their rent, which is something that depresses a lot of people a lot of times. I mean, I have gone through that phase before. I'm not going to lie about it. I have promised myself that I'll always be honest with you, and so we can have this conversation honestly. And there are even times when I've wanted to start my own business, but you'd realize that after you have put your rent together, there's not much left to be able to do anything else. I'm not the only person. I have friends who have also wanted to try and start their own businesses, but the rent is so much. You have to pay 1 year rent, 2 years rent. Sometimes you're not even comfortable where you're living. You want to move out, but you cannot accumulate that amount of money to be able to move out. There are times people complete university, they want to move out of their parents' homes, and they cannot. Because again, they cannot accumulate 1 year, 2 year rent to be able to move out. And so they become a burden again onto their parents. And that depresses them, because nobody wants to be taking money from their parents every single time or live in your parents' house. First of all, there's no freedom. You go out, there's a time when you have to come back home. And you and I know we don't want that. But hey, that is the challenge that we are facing. And from the budget that was read for 2021, we understand that government knows this plight and he's trying to bring a solution to the problem. So we heard from Oseiche Mensah Bonsu saying that there's 100 million Ghana cedis that has been put aside to help or to help help with the introduction of the rental scheme that is being introduced by the government. Like I said earlier, I heard a policymaker saying that this is like robbing Peter to pay Paul. Again, I said that today is not about my opinion. I have with me the General Secretary, the Secretary General for the Ghana, or the National Tenants Association of Ghana, or the National Tenants Union of Ghana. His name is Frederick Opoku, and he will be sharing more into the story. Good morning, Frederick.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm managing. Yeah.
I know before we came live, I was heckling you, and it wasn't just me. You would agree that others were saying they didn't know about the association.
Exactly.
So what has gone wrong there? I mean, briefly.
Thank you very much. I think let me thank TV XYZ for this greatest opportunity. I'm of the view that it's long overdue that issues of social concerns are really, discussed on social media platforms. So such an opportunity for me, almost about 11 million Ghanaians who are tenants are also in a lot of problem or challenge. So we came together to advocate and do all kind of things here. It started somewhere 2012.
Right.
But we've been somehow undertone because, housing issues is a systemic problem. But this kind of lazy approach of solving the problem isn't solving it. As we speak, we have about 2 million housing deficit. I know it's more than that.
Right.
Because you can't have anything to extrapolate from. Where did they get that, that request from? I'm saying, telling today and putting on record, we have about 3.5 million housing deficit. With respect to the statistical 2010, it is not true that 1.7 since President Kufuor's time. Go back and check. If you do the extrapolations, I can tell you for sure that we are around 3.5 million housing deficit.
Right.
Any of our own challenges, it should bring a statistical or scientifically proven record to show that we are 2 million.
Right. From the way you're talking, it seems that you were not, the association wasn't consulted before this policy was implemented.
Not necessarily, we were not at all.
Before we get deeper into this conversation, I would like for us to listen to Oseiche Bonsu when he stated what was going to be done about this situation.
Mr. Speaker, in partnership with the private sector, we will commence the establishment of a national rental assistance scheme with a seed of 100 million Ghana cedis. The scheme would crowd in additional investment from the private sector to provide low-interest loans to eligible Ghanaians to enable them pay rent advance. Enhanced student loan scheme. The Speaker will also commence the planning towards the implementation of enhanced student loan scheme to provide students with the exception of teacher and nurse trainees an option to obtain a student loan without requiring.
Yeah, so that was the caretaker finance minister, Oseiche Bonsu, stating that there is 100 million Ghana cedis put aside to assist with this challenge. How did you receive this news? Is it even realistic?
Thank you very much once again. I think issues of housing is a problem.
It is.
And everybody probably will laud that idea that government really comes out with something of that sort. That to me is not bad news at all.
Right.
But really, the question is it really the solution to the problem?
That's a big question mark. Too, yes.
It's not about trying to do anything to make people to prove. That populist way of trying to, convince people wouldn't wash, because we are of the view that they can do better. Now the issue is about the supply of housing,
right?
Not necessarily bringing 100 million Ghana cedis. It's a thing of the iceberg, and that wouldn't solve the problem. Now, if you are talking about almost about millions of Ghanaians do not have a place to sleep, then you talk about 100, and what about the informal people?
Yes.
The question is about it is not a thought through policy that they are bringing.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I wouldn't say it's bad. It's good. It's the first time a government want to even talk about housing and renting and whatever to the low people. But those who matter, are they going to benefit?
Yeah.
That's the biggest question that we must ask. But we tend to believe, we are skeptical.
Yeah,
very doubtful. That it wouldn't help those who are it meant for, the vulnerable in society. The truck pushers, the traders, and communities who don't earn from the accountant general, whatever. Those who get money from the public service.
Yeah.
They are not paid through in the informal sector. The private sector, how do they benefit?
Exactly.
So you are going to give the money, and people are going to pay through those who are linked to being paid directly every month.
Right.
So if you are not in that category, you don't benefit. So necessarily, I don't think it's realistic.
Right. Now, regardless of you and our opinion, this is happening and is going to happen. But in your opinion, what do you think should be the modalities for qualifications and the timelines?
First of all, I think they should do proper analysis about those who are in problem. They challenge people. Now the question is that before they did this, what was the thought, of course.
Yeah.
There must be a criteria, and that should have been channeled for some of us, as we are consumers of what we do.
Exactly.
So as consumers, you don't consult me and you sit down in your room like bosses and do whatever pleases you. It will not trickle down to the people who need it. So I'm wondering what criteria that is used in doing this. So maybe we are waiting for them to, so they took me like the usual way of, put it there and share among ourselves.
Right.
Because the most vulnerable wouldn't benefit.
Right.
Trust me.
But let's assume that the policymakers are watching right now.
Yes.
What would you suggest, what would you suggest should be the criteria for these things?
You see, the way I remember in August last year, the vice president came out, to tell that people are going to benefit. He was trying to even convince Ghanaians both the informal and this thing can benefit, but they wasn't clear about it. So, for me, if I have my way, I would say that it is not too late. It's about to be started, so they can still reconvene and bring a criteria. Then the informer can also be integrated.
Yeah.
Then possibly, and even more so, if you give you money to go and rent and pay monthly. So it's not something realistic that you can even think of. So I think that they should have a criteria of which you can bring on board for some of us to also come in. You shouldn't see us like talkatives or we are just making noise.
Right.
But we are the consumers. As I sit here, I'm speaking and I'm advocating for 11 million Ghanaians. Trust me. If you do the analysis properly, aren't we 30 million in this country or that? So how many of them, if you put 10 people there, you get about 9 people who are tenants. If you want to extrapolate it into calculation and statistical reviews, then you can realize that yes, indeed, many people are suffering and they are tenants, and we are the mouthpiece of those people. So we must be consulted.
Yeah, definitely. Now, the government has recently threatened to enforce the rent law of 1963. Now, for the benefit of my viewers, the Rent Act 1963 is an act to consolidate and amend the law relating to the control of rent and the recovery of the possession of premises in certain cases. In certain cases, to amend certain provisions of existing enactments and to provide for matters connected therein or incidental. Now, before I read that, it says here that government has recently threatened to enforce the rent law of 1963. Is that not a recipe for disaster? That is, I mean, if the landlords decide that I'm not going to lease my property out if you are not going to pay more than 6 months advance.
The question is, once again, who has to be blamed? The government. Because we are talking about supply and demand here, right? That's what they hide behind. You see other ministers who have come and gone. So that because there's demand and supply, they hide behind demand and supply. To justify the way they act.
Right.
Now, the 220th Act of Parliament, that is the Rent Act of 1963.
Yes.
Section 25, subsection 5 prohibits landlord renting more than 6 months. And that is criminal, it's offensive, and it's punishable by law. And that person can be incarcerated.
And now, this law has always been changed now?
How long? You almost check from 1963 to 2021. Look at the period over there. Now, landlords have taken the opportunity of the loopholes in the rent law, especially section 25, subsection 5 of the rent law, and that they do it with impunity, because after all, they come by it. Now, they have rendered, the rent control department has been a toothless bulldog. Toothless bulldog, they can't bite. They are sitting down solving issues, the main issues that actually, prescribed by the law. They aren't doing it. It's about bring issues, let's solve between landlord and this thing. But do you know, my sister, that under the rent law, 1963, even how much to charge, the location, all is taken into consideration. If you don't have a certificate as a landlord, whenever you rent, you must just go to rent control and get a certificate before you can even rent out. You get the point?
Yeah.
But these are all not done. And things are messed up. But who are supposed to be blamed? We go back to the Ministry of Housing. I would urge that the new Minister of Housing, Honorable Asenso Boache, has come. And that maybe he is promising during the vetting that he will do what is needful to make sure that maybe they can review the law. We are all seeing, it's almost about a decade now that the issue of we want to review the law has come to to bear. Yeah. But unfortunately, I can tell you, every time we ask the politicians, they say, oh, it's in cabinet. It's in cabinet. From President Kufuor's time, the rent bill has been in cabinet till another time. It's still in cabinet.
Yeah,
so what kind of cabinet and what kind of shelf do you have this kind of cabinet?
That brings me to my next question, actually. To the best of my knowledge, the rent bill has been passed for over a decade now.
Yes.
Have you followed up?
It has not been passed, please.
It hasn't?
It's a bill.
Yes.
It must go to Parliament. It must go to, first of all, go to Cabinet. Cabinet, okay, these are the policies.
Right.
As they claim today, I'm not aware that the document is currently with Parliament, with Cabinet. They want to now bring it back to after whatever deliberations. They will bring it back to what? Parliament, for it to be passed. That will take about a year or two. So it isn't true that law is a bill. There's a difference between bill and act.
Yeah.
It's normal. It's just a common bill that people have sat down, stakeholders have come together, ministers have brought a policy, and they want to say, okay, we want to go by 1 year, right? Instead of 6 months. And that if it happens, now the tenant to be relieved, the landlord to be relieved. It's going to be a striking win-win situation. That is what they are trying to project.
Right.
And now I can tell you, my sister, anybody who tells you it has not gone, I'm even doubting if it's at cabinet. Because if you have a population of 30 million, and more than 80% of them are renting, then you think that you take that document and put it at cabinet. If it was some kind of nuisance decisions, they would have passed it immediately. But when human beings have to sleep, they don't care about it. These are the politicians we have in this country. When it comes to even voting, you come and be making a lot of promises here and there, left, center, right, what have you. But after that, what happens? Absolutely nothing. I'm passionate, I'm so emotional, because I know a lot of people are challenged by where to sleep. That should be the concern of these politicians. That's why I'm urging media people to now cast a mind back on social issues like where to sleep. Abraham also said, we have a hierarchy of needs. Yes. If you don't have physiological needs, you can't think about self-actualization. Is that not so?
Yeah.
They didn't do the economics.
Needs.
There are no sociologists amongst us.
Basic.
They pretend as if they are not aware. It's a basic law of the system. Basic sociological issues. But the government pretend they don't know. Now, if you go to settlement, right? The only end is this time. They had about this 1,500, Mohammed time, 1,500 housing unit.
Right.
When Minister Atachia was there, it's about litigation one here and another. You want to go to court, they have defrauded the country, and he went 4 years, nothing. You ask, what is that, Mr. Atachia? He didn't do nothing. So, 11 million or plus people in Ghana here are suffering. And I think they can do something better about it.
Right. Now, my question was, have you personally or as an association followed up on this bill?
You see, once I try as much as possible to have an engagement with the minister. And this time around, Honorable Asensibu, we're going to engage him. If you engage and they're not open up, how do you enter?
Right.
You go there. I remember when Honorable Atachia was there. I went there and he was very something. I mean, sorry for my word, snobbish. Are you okay? Because maybe he isn't as a minister at all. How many people voted for your president to come to power? 5 or 6 million. We are talking about 17 million people who are suffering. And you think that if you're a minister of housing, behold, you have been given the opportunity. That's it. That is a palpable lie. And we will force and ensure this time around. They make promises. And I've said, we engaged Vice President, what's the name, Mahmoud Bawumia, on the 3rd of September 2020 at Jubilee House with a delegate from Tenant Union. They promised doing massive work in housing this time around. Now, I'm happy that one of the things they said in their manifesto about renting and giving advance water has been granted. So I'm very optimistic and I'm hopeful that they will walk the talk and build more affordable housing for the poor to also enjoy.
Right. Now, with all the challenges you have stated and the ones that we couldn't state due to time, would you say that the rent control has not been effective?
I have called for it to be scrapped since 2017 thereabout. Technically, sorry for saying that, and let me apologize to the rent chief or rent officer and his those that he's working with, that we are highly disappointed in the rent control department of Ghana. I wouldn't also blame them because they depend on Ministry for Housing, Works and Housing. If there are subventions and they are not given, because if housing is a priority, we need to resource the institution mandated by law.
Yeah.
To 220th law of Parliament to resource the rent control department. At first, even recently, they were owning people and they didn't even have a place to stay. They are still using typewriters. They don't have vehicles. So if an issue, you go to rent control as a tenant, they have to ask you money to take taxi.
Right.
You're a poor man that you are owning a landlord. How then do you do this? That's unfortunate. Right. To my concern,
Quickly, before I wrap up, 2020 MPP manifesto says that they will build a national housing authority. How realistic is this?
You see,
in some few seconds.
In 2015,
yes,
it was said in the national housing policy. It took us almost about 40 years to have a national housing policy. It was spelled out clearly that there should be a national housing policy, a national housing authority.
Right.
Now, I'm happy that they have come, and during the vetting, the housing minister designate or the now new housing minister confirmed that he will work to make sure that the housing authority is being, and that we are okay with that and whatever you hear. Okay. So I hope I'm optimistic. I don't want to blame him because of what others did. I wouldn't want to transfer that kind of issues on Asante Boakye.
Right.
I know he's a young man. I know he will listen. I will be engaging him from next week.
Okay.
And if he doesn't conform, we will come and discuss again here.
Right.
I'm very clear in my mind that he will conform.
We hope so. Thank you, Frederick, for talking to us this morning. Now, we have been talking to the Secretary General for the National Tenants Union of Ghana, Frederick Opoku, who has said a lot today. And this is in relation to the 2021 budget that was read. And it stated that 100 million Ghana cedis is going to be put aside as a rental scheme or rental assistance scheme to help Ghanaians who are struggling with their rent, and also to implement the bill that says that we shouldn't pay advance for more than 6 months. Hopefully, this is a good solution and not a problem that is going to be created with hopes of solving another problem. This has been the social segment on the Morning Update on TV XYZ. This program, once again, is proudly brought to you by X Natural Mineral Water. We'll be right back with our newspaper review, so stay tuned.
Welcome back. Health and business tidbits. For business tidbits, what I followed was that make sure you track your competitor, because you have your own idea, but they also have theirs. If you put the two together, you can make progress. And tomatoes is good. I like tomatoes. It's good for your kidney, and the rest I'm sure you read. But it's time for the newspapers. We are about some few minutes late, but I enjoyed the conversation with Abna, which obviously would dovetail into what we are going to do this morning. On Mondays, you know, I always have a lawyer and an academician. John Kweku Mensah Mauto is the Dean of Students at the School of Graduate Studies. Is that correct? Yeah. Of the University of Professional Studies, Accra, here, UPSA. Akwaba.
Thank you. Good
How's
morning.
everything? It looks like you didn't enjoy your weekend because your eyes are closing.
I'm telling you, I think I had a very short weekend.
Are you sure?
I wish.
You are back in still.
Oh, not really. There are a lot of things to read and some domestic issues you have to resolve.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure your kids were not giving you a headache.
Oh, no.
All right. And then he's a legal practitioner. He speaks very passionate. And many people who monitor say they would love to hear him whenever we're talking about legal issues. It's Alexander Chum Berema. Alex, how are you? I like your color.
Thank you.
You see, it be black beauty. You know, when you are black and your body is smooth, you really enjoy what African is. Are you a suffer this morning? Your top. Because of, if you put white there, you become a suffer.
No, it's because it's part of our address anyway. So
after this, you go to court.
When you take off the bands.
How does it look like if you lose a case in court? And your client was so optimistic. And still you have to take legal fees.
That is why we don't have to assure your client that you win a case for your client. It's highly
So if you lose a case, you still take the legal fees.
You go to seek justice.
You have not answered my question.
Once I appear in court, you have to pay.
The man doesn't want to talk about money. You go and you write your man, you feel you still say that for it's not fair.
Which one is not fair? Pay me after I've been in court.
I pay you legal fees to go to court, and then you lose the case, and you still want to take the
I didn't lose the case because I lost the case. I lost the case because maybe your case deserved to be. I mean,
okay,
it was obvious.
You think about it, gentlemen. You are welcome. This morning we are looking at the 2021 budget. A lot in there: positive, negative, scary, worrying, or reassuring. That's how I want to summarize them.
Yeah.
I don't know who to start with. Let me start with John. John, okay. I don't need to say what you know already. So, John, the budget has been read.
Yeah.
Your first shot.
Okay. Thank you. And good morning to all your viewers. I think last week was a little bit stressful. It was eventful throughout. A few days after listening to the president giving the State of Nations address, we have to once again monitor the budget and then listen to what the minister who has been tasked to present and the content as well. So just as you mentioned, we were reading through the budget throughout the weekend to know what the issues are, what is in for Ghanaians, and the sort of things that we should expect in the coming year. In fact, just as they themed the budget to be here budget, I want to say that it's a budget full of austerity measures. It tells you that we have very difficult times to come, and the government appreciates this fact. And for that matter, there are some areas that Ghanaians must come on board to also contribute towards the sustainability of economic growth in this country. Now, we're not talking about even growth per se, but we are talking about sustaining our operations as a country, sustaining the very indicators that will help the average Ghanaian. So I wasn't surprised at all that you have the introduction of levies. In fact, proud to the budget statement being read. A number of associations were of the view that the government should not introduce any new tariff, especially taxes. And I think I mean, we heard from the Spare Parts Association, we heard from a number of associations who they spoke, so on. They were not interested in any levy. But this tells you that we've gotten to a stage where considering the rate at which our debt to GDP ratio is 76%, which is pushing us into the level of crisis, it tells you that the government must find all other means, alternative means of generating revenue. So I wasn't surprised at all to have heard the minister proposing a number of levy, sanitation levy. We are talking about road tolls yet to be discussed as to what. But to be frank with you, Eric, I was so much relieved with respect to the levy on financial institutions. That 5% levy on profit before tax is very, very necessary. It's very creative, and I think it's one of the areas that, because this one is, they are just taxing their profit. I mean, so it will not really impact on their operations. Okay, it's just like the normal.
Is it taxing before profit or after profit?
It's not before tax.
Okay.
So it's after operations, everything.
Okay.
So you know, we've ever introduced that before during the Kufuor era. As a country, I think there was this development levy, and which was the same, and that one cut across not only financial institutions. There were several institutions that both manufacturing, other industries, they were paying some fixed levy after before tax. That is after all their operations. It's I think it's a step in the right direction, because so much has been used, so much of tax has been used. Taxpayers' money has been used to redeem and reorganize the banking sector. So it is fair that the government is planning to look at how to levy these financial institutions and then recover and put some measures in place to see how best the economy will come. I mean, will come back to its expectation.
So those have to do with the taxes that have been imposed.
Yes.
But I believe that there are other things which were mentioned, because I'm giving you 5 minutes for opening remarks, so you can wrap up in 2 minutes.
Okay, so
with the conclusion. Then we move on to other areas.
All right. So I'm also looking at the performance. If I'm to look at the performance of this government over last year, we all know that we cannot really use the figures we have to assess them in view of COVID-19, because all the figures, I mean, drastically reduced. If you have GDP for within 11 months, reducing from the expected 6.8% to 0.2%, it tells you that the ravaging effect of COVID-19 was massive. It affected all our fiscal indicators. It tells you that it was rare. I mean, not ever in the history of this country that within 11 months we could record such lower.
But Ghana Revenue Authority was within the same space saying that, oh, they've made profit. What does it really mean?
But they don't make profit. They raise revenues. I think.
But they exceeded the target they set for themselves beyond the expectation of COVID. Yet, in spite of the COVID having an impact on us, they are making profit.
Okay.
And then we are saying that COVID is also affecting the economy. I don't understand. Maybe you may explain.
The COVID introduced more costs than the revenue generated. There were several social interventions by the government. Free water, subsidized electricity, all those things come to play. We are talking about providing PPEs to the schools, and these were costs that we would have incurred as a country, supposing there was no COVID.
For me, as an ordinary person, how do we compare our revenues, the cost on the economy, $1 billion coming in, $100 million coming in, which were money that have come in for us to spend?
Okay.
And so how do you place this within the context of the size of the economy and the impact of COVID, putting us at 0.2% instead of the projected 6-7% before the end of the year?
It's further tells you that, you see, this money, supposing there was no COVID, it would have gone into other areas. Road infrastructure, health infrastructure, education infrastructure. But here we have to pump so much money in recovering and also providing stimulus packages for the less privileged entrepreneurs, and also giving some interventions. Okay, it's very important. It's very important to also take into consideration the difficulties that 2020 brought about because of COVID-19. So the figures were just, I mean, they are outliers.
Okay,
I mean,
so I think we'll end here. We've done almost about 5 minutes plus for your opening remarks. So, Alexander Chumberema, your opening remark, then we can begin the real conversation on specific areas.
Okay, good morning to our viewers and listeners as well, if they are. Budget. Well, I couldn't get an opportunity to listen to it fully because I was out of town, and where I was at some point, it's only when I come into my car that I could get access to, listen or follow a bit. Yeah. But for me, I have my own issues when it comes to this budget thing. The way and manner we spent. I couldn't imagine that we say we are spending 49% of our total revenue or income as a country on you are going to spend that 49% on servicing of loan interest. Loan interest.
So almost 50%.
49 on loan interest. Not even the loan itself, interest. But you see, one will ask a question that, okay, it means we have borrowed. What did you use the money for? Those money that we borrowed that we are going to pay interest on, what were those monies used for? Question number one. Are there things to point to, things to prove that indeed we use this money for that? Let me take you back to the COVID era, during the lockdown. If I'm right, $10 million was used to provide food to just a fraction of Ghana's population. I'm using the word fraction because it wasn't every part of Ghana that were asked to to be given food. Just a section. And you know the challenge. They limited it to Accra, Kumasi. Greater Accra, Greater Kumasi. That was the name then. And even with that, not every person was qualified to get it. I don't know whether you had some. I was in the country, so I cannot say anything about that. But I don't know whether you had some, or maybe you know somebody who had some. But from what I saw on social media, in Kumasi, for instance, people were being placed on the street. In fact, to be very specific, Asokwa, just before Makion restaurant, on the Asokwa highway towards the stadium, people were placed on that road to be given packed food, Eric, with I think 1 egg or something, sometimes fish. And you had the information minister then, coming to tell us that they have been able to spend $10 million on that money. $10 million on that, food supply.
Because of COVID.
How many people did they spend on? Eric, do you know the quantum of $10 million in our currency? That is the angle I want you to look at. $10 million. Do you know what it can do for a village? And we said we spend that money to give food to people. I'm not saying it's wrong to give food.
What are you driving at?
What I'm driving at is that the way and manner we spend recklessly is too much. As a country, we have raised bonds, we have raised several things. But Eric, there is very little to point to when it comes to those monies. Every now and then we come to the parliament, we read budget, give it names. We have had a Sempa budget, we've had whatever kind of budget, in the past. Now this one is going forward budget. What here is mean what? Going forward budget.
So we are moving forward.
We are moving forward budget. Moving forward from where to where?
What I understand is that government says in spite of the COVID, they have money to sustain the economy. Public sector workers have been paid on monthly basis, and it is not as bad as it could have been.
Were they not being paid before COVID?
But for their ability to put the economy at a certain level. And where we are now, the policies they have introduced is going to give government some grounding to be able to move forward.
Which are the policies? Eric, which are the policies? Let us be fair to ourselves. It is high time we stop deceiving ourselves sometimes. Ghana, as we stand now, if anybody will give us even a loan again, which I know we are going to go for more in the next 4 years, we are going to be giving the loan as a high-risk country, simply because of the rate at which we have borrowed. And our debt to GDP, which is about 76% or 79, I think 76, right? 76%, yeah. It's too much.
So the alternative, as he tried to put across, could have been these levies they are introducing, or taxes, to be able to rake in more, to at least support government and then prevent the temptation of going elsewhere for money.
And you know, there's a saying in our local dialect, "Oh, we are for son, wash your winsa." Eric, did they say they are going to increase road toll?
They will.
I'm going to give you a small assignment. Go and check the comment of Eslausu. When road tolls was increased under President Mo's administration to this current rate that we are paying, 1 cedi for 4x4s and other things, go and check her comments. Is it now good to increase road tolls? Is it now good to do that? Is it now good to increase VAT? Really? Did they know that they were going to come to government at a time to come? If If the answer is yes, then the question is that why were they criticizing every single step, which was positive in any direction? They had issues with all these things. Now they are coming to do the same thing. We had the year of roads. Did you see the roads that were being constructed in that year of road? I'm told that it has been extended to this year also.
Have you seen some roads are being touched?
Some roads were being touched. You saw some?
I have seen some.
Okay, then that's good. Fair enough, because from my village, where I'm coming from, Eric, I wish your team or your crew would just take a thought to that place.
These are, we have 2 minutes to wrap up with your opening comment, but we have seen the taxes and other issues about how much was spent in the past, for which reason government can give us that assurance that going in for more by way of raising revenue will be used judiciously.
They have not taught us what those money that we borrowed were used.
When we are entering the debate stage, I'm sure we will delve into that. But there's an issue about a policy or a scheme to cushion workers who need rent. There's a policy in there that is talking about building of hospitals or creating opportunities for the youth here and there. These are initiatives that anybody will say
do you know why I'm laughing?
Going to help. No, I don't know.
Somewhere, was it August last year or around September? I stand for correction. We were told that 100, is it 100 hospitals or something?
Is it
88.
88 hospitals were coming within 1 year. How many months now?
At least 7 months plus.
Okay, and you have come to give us another promise of 111. Now 88
agenda 111.
Come on, senior. Even the 88, we didn't even see anything. Not even a stone was taken to a site.
At least La General Hospital.
It's a bare land.
It's not part of the 88.
It is a bare land. Your team have been there. You know it, Eric.
I am aware.
Thank you. It's a bare land. Nothing is going on there. Not even, a tire of a bicycle is being run on that land.
So, at the end of the day, does it suggest that this budget doesn't have anything good for us?
To me, I don't see anything in that. Listen, budget are projections. There are things that you intend to do tomorrow.
Based on what?
Based on your available resources and other things. All right? But now, look at something. We had a president coming to promise us. It's only you through a budget too. In a critical situation time, COVID, unexpected. That because of the situation that we have now, we have come to realize that there is a need for abundant hospitals. We need more hospitals. All right? And for that reason, we are going to construct 88 more in all districts that do not have even one. In fact, my district is number one.
You see, the point you are raising is of interest because I'm reading something somebody has just sent to me.
Okay.
And it says the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, is advocating for the passage of a law to prevent governments from starting new projects when they have not secured adequate funding for
and
it.
Even not that.
Is it where we should
not just that, Eric. Go to Kumawu right now, in the Ashanti region. Go to Abetifi in the eastern region. Go to Famina in Ashanti region. Again, you will see projects that were commenced by the ex-administration, which is the President Mahama administration. Hospitals, district hospitals, 110 or 100 beds or something, were under construction. Up to today, nothing has happened to it.
Okay, so
and now you have come to promise us that you are going to do 110 or 111 rather. 111. You promised us 88. 7 months down the line, we saw nothing or we have seen nothing. Now you have come to promise us 111. Definitely, you are also going to see nothing.
Okay, so
in the same way that we have had old ones, which nothing has been done to them, and they have been left in the bush rotten. And we are promising us new ones.
Okay, so what I know is that there is another conversation, I think, by government that there should be a regime where every project that was started should be completed. That should be a priority. I don't know if that's really true, but we'll be listening to some members of parliament who spoke to us just after the budget was read, so that it will feed into or to provoke their thoughts to respond to it. But this is the 2020 budget, and the Appendix 6 looks at the expenditure for the various MMDAs, free SHS, 2 billion or 2.4 billion. It goes on to talk about infrastructure for poverty eradication program, over 1.04 billion. Then it goes down to government communication, 6 million cedis. Then fish landing sites, 10 million cedis. It goes to planting for food and jobs, 400 million cedis. It goes to Nation Builders Corps, 840 million cedis. Then if you look at this 2020, if you look at 2021, at least government communication, they've cut it by 2 million cedis. That is 4 million. Then National Identification Authority, 200 million cedis. The Nation Builders Corps, 672. You have Zongo Development Fund, 83 million. Special Development Initiatives, 852 million. Fish landing sites, 29 million. Water and sanitation, 90 million, and so on. I'm deliberately mentioning these because it raises concern about so much allocation made to specific MMDAs. And the other question is, are they spending the money for what we want to see?
No.
And if that expenditure has not been done, at what stage can the public actually bring government to account and move us forward? It will form part of our conversation when my guests, Lawyer Chumberima and John Kweku-Mensah Mauto, who is a lecturer at the University of Professional Studies, Alexander Chumberima, is a legal practitioner. So the figures I was mentioning is what appeared on your screen. I believe that as we come back, you'll see more. The picture there, we'll talk about it. That's the Auditor General. It's also part of the conversation at the tail end. We understand that he's grabbed a job at the European Central Bank after he was moved. I was talking about 4 million cedis spent to be spent this year on the Ministry of Communications and so on. Then you see the Special Development Initiative. So all those things are appearing on the screen. But at this stage, I want us to listen to some members of Parliament. They have some interesting reaction to the 2021 budget. So we'll hear them. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation.
Has tipped several countries into recession. The impact on our economy was very devastating. Okay. But the president has steeled the economy against all these vicissitudes.
We predicted it. They were spending like there will be no tomorrow. They were spending as if we wouldn't have a moment like this. And because of the elections, they went over gear, they went out of board, they spent so much. And now that they've realized that there's a huge gap, that the debt to GDP is not sustainable, they've come up with a plethora of taxes. This is a government that came on the bandwagon of moving from transaction to production. Now they are moving back into so much taxation. This year alone, in just 2 months, we've seen about 9% increment in petrol prices, about 4 times. And now you're putting all these taxes on petroleum products. And when you put such taxes on petroleum products, it affects everybody. Truck drivers will be affected, passengers will be affected. So clearly, we've eaten our cake as a country with the reckless expenditure of this government.
What about the waiver of some taxes on import of vehicles for commercial business?
They always say that, and when you go to the ports, it's always a problem. When they came, they told us that they are taking off some taxes. You do recall that the Abosokai spare parts dealers and other vehicle operators came and insisted that that is false. Clearly, this is a government that blows hot and cold, and you cannot really trust them. But at the end of the day, the overall effect is that we should brace up for very difficult moments. We should brace up for hardships, because these are taxes that will really bite. If the financial sector is taxed, they are not being taxed after profit. They are being taxed before profit. So they will have to realign and extend that expenditure to their customers.
I can tell you that this amnesia, this pathetic blindness is sad. Even in the United States of America, the consequences of the COVID disaster is obvious. Biden is secured $1 trillion plus to what? Resuscitate an economy that was otherwise doing well. The rest of the things that we have enjoyed so far, free water, electricity, and that nobody who was taking his livelihood from the national employment suffered. No layoffs in public employment. It should tell you the competence of President Akufo-Addo, and I have confidence in God that he's going to turn around the economy. For 100 districts who will be entitled to hospitals and the rest of it. That is evidence of competence.
What about taxes?
Are we not going to have free water and free electricity? So what is the citizens' contribution to the crisis? That is a little irritation you need to bear. There's no nation in which the citizens do not bear part of the responsibility.
But your opponent suggests that the free electricity and free water is only piling debt and not really paying these utility companies?
It's giving relief to the ordinary people. It's giving relief to the entire nation because the economy contracted. World economy is contracted because of the COVID. You can't reach this away. So how do you give relief? For you to be angry that you are drinking free water is one understanding that I don't have.
Sad. Very sad. No. And you know, above all, VAT is going to go up by 1%. The small businesses that used to pay 3% flat rate, which if you look at it, input output, that has gone to about 3%. Now you know what they have done. They have increased it by additional 1% to 4%. My God.
So what will be the implications of that?
Hardship. Hardship. Brace your belt. Because your disposable income, President Akufo-Addo and his vice Bawumia is taking part of it. Yes, COVID has some impact on the private sector of the economy. But at the governmental level, you cannot blame COVID. COVID has done nothing. You heard him saying that initially they had projected that growth is going to be about 0.9%. And they said that it was far better than they thought, and they have revised it about 2.something%. If COVID had been that bad, would they have increased the growth rate? Again, let me assure you that it is obvious that COVID has not affected our economy that bad. Because if it had affected our economy that bad, GRA wouldn't have reported that revenue has actually overperformed. They said customs revenue has overperformed 5 years than any other country, any other year.
In a nutshell, are you suggesting that there's nothing good in the budget?
The budget is empty. The budget brings a ahochre. This budget, simply put, is a bitter pill.
So you are welcome. This is TVXYZ. We are having our off-record debate, and then the MPs were also speaking to you. Now you've got us on camera, so we'll continue. We heard them.
Yes.
Various views.
Yes.
I remember Ejapa Mensah was saying that, look, they have to take it and then give it back to you. The minority is saying times are going to be hard.
Yeah.
Now, let's go into specifics.
Okay.
The rental scheme, or whatever they call it, the levy on pollution, for example. So government, as soon as the budget is approved, perhaps this week or next week, the levy will come into force.
Yeah.
I live in Accra, I live in Kumasi or Takoradi, or maybe Agbakofa, somewhere. Once I continue to pay the tax, at what stage should I hold government responsible to make sure that if it is sanitation, it is being catered for, or all those introduced taxes that are supposed to be of benefit to me? But as like Chumberema said, you take the money and we don't really have evidence of implementation.
Okay, so you are talking about issues of accountability here. And we all know that when government collects money, and obviously you expect the people to see the project. However, the issues of accountability has to do with the end of year auditing of the books as to whether the monies that were collected were used according to what we plan to do, whether there was value for the things that we did. These are issues of accountability. So if you want us to sway into that, then it's another conversation that will require that we look at the Auditor General's audit opinions on sector by sector, as well as district by district and municipal by municipal, and the agencies as well as ministries. These are issues of accountability. But let's look at the impact of some of these levies. It's obvious that whenever you introduce a levy that has to do with touching the issue of transportation, then the entire economy will be affected. We are introducing sanitation and pollution levy, as well as what do you call it? COVID-19?
Yes.
Is it COVID-19? There's two levies.
There are two levies on fuel.
Which
I'll be specific on them while you continue your conversation.
Which adds up to 30 pesos.
Yes.
Okay, so it tells you that technically a gallon of petrol will probably be increasing by 1 1 cedi to 35 pesos.
But can you tell how many times it has been increased in the last 3 weeks?
And then the impacts we know. I mean, it spreads across the poor and the rich.
Okay, so you were asking for it. I think I have it. It says the budget will impose 1% VAT COVID-19 health levy, 1% on national health insurance levy as part of it. Then I think 20% will be part of the levy on fuel, and then the other one for the name the same way.
Okay, that's 20 pesos.
20 pesos per liter.
Yeah.
So now it means that with the VAT, it's now going to be 19%, right? 19.5.
No, it's not as the way you see it. It's a fixed rate that will be calculated. Is it NHIS?
NHIS.
NHIS is already 2.5.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's 1% added to it.
Making 3.5 now.
5% now.
So VAT automatically going up by 90%. It's the same thing.
Yeah. So the impact is obvious, okay? But as I mentioned, you see, we've gotten to a stage that the government have to be a bit creative, and I personally don't think some of these levies are more creative, because it's going to worsen the plight of Ghanaians, the average Ghanaian. I mean, technically, you increase the price of fuel. Everybody, depends on fuel. Even the farmer has to transport its goods from the farm to the market. So when you touch fuel, you are touching, and that's also obviously one of the secured ways of generating revenue. Now we have a budget deficit of 9% that you expect that government should generate revenue, and if we are looking at debt alone, it be a little bit inimical to always going for debt. I know the government is planning to do 5 billion what do you call it, a bond, and then we are talking about our indicator, just as my very good colleague mentioned. Our credit rating is not looking bright. The various credit agencies have rated us down. Standard & Poor's has rated us to be negative.
I think Fitch has also
graded us out. And once you have these agencies grading you out, then it tells you that you'll be going for a loan which will be a bit expensive,
of course,
than before. In fact, all our credit ratings have gone down by the agencies.
So it
doesn't really speak well.
So which one is wisest? And I'm using the word advisedly.
Okay.
That you continue to give freebies in the way by way of electricity or water to the people, which really is not making the expected impact on majority of people, because those may not be the need, or if you do the needs assessment, that may not be the focus. And then you turn around to tax the people where they are going to pay more for maybe transport, pay more for commodities, because prices of commodities will go up. So you have to pay the utility companies, and you are tapping in money. And I don't know which one is.
No, Eric,
which one makes sense?
Eric, it's very, very important that there are some basic needs that the government has to provide. In fact, water should not even be a commodity that should be paid for. If you look at it very well, in most Western countries, it is not paid for. US, they don't pay water bill. Okay, you don't pay. I mean, water is provided free. It's part of it's the other utility fees that you pay. But you check, they don't pay water.
I don't know anyway.
Yeah, you can check.
In UK, you pay, but it's just twice in the year.
So you see,
the whole year is struck into two. So you pay twice in the
year. They've done it a community-based thing. Look at the total cost of providing water in a community, and the government can say, okay, I'm taking the cost of it.
In a minute,
so you see, the average Ghanaian needs electricity to work. So if there's some subvention, the Simtres, the Taylor, I mean, all those guys will need some. So we need to really, the government has to come in to lessen their burden. Water should be, the basic commodity that nobody should buy. Okay, but the policy on making it free is not there, because it's not the poor. Most poor people don't have water in their various homes. They go and buy.
That is what I am referring to.
So see,
government rhetoric is that we are providing
free water.
Free water.
Okay.
And so even if I'm taxing you, because I'm giving you free water and free electricity, but go to Glife in Accra here, go to all the communities out on the fringes of Accra, and realize that even people who have spent their own money to develop part of Accra, beyond Dodoa, those stretches of land, where people have built their own houses, JWCL has not or is not providing water to these people. And many of them may even be living in the deprived parts of this country, i.e. Accra or anywhere else. And so if you are providing free water and they don't have access, yet government says, I am providing it and I'm targeting the poor, and the poor are not benefiting. And then you are slapping the same people with taxes with the excuse that you are getting something free, then what are you driving at?
That's what I mentioned, that whenever you come with interventions, you come with it. I mean, you formulate the policy.
Okay, so just leave it there. I just came to whet your appetite, but unfortunately, I'll take the food to Alexander Chumberema. You've done about 6 minutes already. Unfortunately, Alex, eat the food for him.
I'm going to start with the VAT. See, for once, I'm a lawyer, but let me do some mathematics for you. Even though I'm not a mathematician, my senior brother may be more.
I have some good in that. Small inclination as well.
This government, when they came into power, indirectly, they increased VAT. But if you are not smart, you will not see it. Let me tell you what I'm trying to say. Now, VAT already was 17, is it 17.5, right?
It was 17.5.
Already. And it was flat. Do you know what they did? They said, oh, we want the NHL and then is it Get Fund, right? To be independent.
Yeah.
So they took the NHL 2.5 separate, Get Fund 2.5 separate. Now and then the proper VAT is 12.5.
Yes,
that one too was separate. So now if you buy something and let's say 1,000 cedis, they will work 2.5 separate too, and then they will add those 2.5, which is 5% on back to the 1,000 before they will work out the 12.5%. So indirectly, if you pay, let's say, 17 cedis on VAT before that new system,
the new computation will show you paying a little more.
You're right. Now you pay more.
So what is the correlation to the conversation?
So now they have come again with a different method. That method that they brought is holding, and now they're telling that we are increasing just 1% of is it Get Fund, right?
NHI.
Just the NHIL.
Yeah.
No,
they are two.
They are two.
But while you are at it, let me try to put it again.
They are indirectly increasing the NHIL by 1%, meaning that now instead of 2.5, it's going to be 3.5. Indirectly, that takes you to 18.5%. And there's another one.
Okay, so we have the 1% VAT COVID-19 health levy.
Okay.
And then 1% national health insurance levy.
Which means that...
So we have 1% plus another 1%.
Okay, so which means that the VAT is now going by 13.5, and then the NHS is going by 3.5. If you add it up, the VAT is now what? It's no longer 17, now it's now 19.5%. Yeah. There's an increase.
No, but I see, the point of correction, let me just, sometimes the separation was done purposely to segregate some of the sectors. There are some things when you buy, you wouldn't pay the entire 19%. You are paying VAT and then NHI. For instance, the restaurants, there's you go this time you are paying some. You're not paying the entire. You know this segregation in 2016. That the issue of taxing all the sectors, with respect to the total tax rate that was, they segregated it by making sure that there are some areas when you go in there you pay just the VAT and then the NHI. That's the point of
But I've listened to the other side, which has strongly argued that that impression is false. I don't know, but
have you checked from the restaurant when you buy food?
One thing is that I hardly pay attention to their calculations.
I do.
Someone will say you are chiseling.
I'm an accountant. I'm a finance person. So
thank you.
I try to verify some of the policies that are introduced. And you can only do that by...
but you still have the
choice. So now my problem is that I have nothing against the introduction of VAT.
Okay.
It's good. I mean, that's one way that the government will make money. Government doesn't work. He can only get money from us.
Yeah.
All over the world. So I agree. But you see, my challenge with these people, of this very government, is that the same things that they had issues with, which they were criticizing vehemently, now they are doing it. And in fact, they are even going deeper than what it was in the past era. We have had our own 17.5%. You said you don't even want that, you didn't even need it. Now you are bringing us 19.5 and you think that one is okay, so we should all keep quiet and swallow. I mean, how?
Is it appropriate at this stage that if times are tough, government will also take a second look at some of the so-called freebies? Because there's a school of thought that some of them are misapplied and just simply waste of resources.
Eric, freebies. How many people were enjoying that free water? How many?
Chama, I did though.
No, but I mean, how many? Take Ghana as a whole. Because it was given to the entire Ghanaians, right? Not how many people are getting water from Ghana Water Company? I live at the Spinters Road. Where I live, I think we get it twice or so in a week.
You are lucky. Others may be somewhere in this country who may not get access at all.
No, some don't have it at all. Go to some rural areas.
But
they are using pipeline water.
John, it is an effort to support a group of Ghanaians.
It's good. It's okay. You see, but if you tell me that because you gave those things out, so you have indirectly you have incurred some cost, you need to pay those costs back. By virtue of that, you are bringing out some kind of levies in order to generate more funds, so that you can either give more.
So the budget is beyond taxes. In the budget, government has also looked at projects.
Yeah.
So it can be in the road sector,
yeah,
or the health sector, and so on and so forth. The free SHS program, for example, government has allocated over 1.6 billion or so to support that area. And so while many people may raise concerns about the potential impact on our pockets, difficult times ahead, Atoforson was talking about borrowing budget. Ejapa Mesa was saying, for example, that look, it is necessary. So while you are giving them freebies, tax them small and raise money to do other things. How should we brace ourselves going forward if you were supposed to advise Ghanaians, Alex?
Well, it simply means that the going is going to be very tough.
Yeah.
And that everybody has to, we have nothing to do than to endure. We have nothing to do than to endure. But my only worry is that in the last 4 years, we had series of budgets and projections and projects which were being named that, oh, this is going to come, this is going to come, this is going to come. Did we see them? Did all those projects come up? At some point, we had, I think Koforidua was going to get an interchange. Then later we were told that, oh, no, it's no longer going to come. Kumasi, they were scheduled for 2 interchanges, the one at Ofori Krum and then another one at Swami. At some point, they said, oh, no, we can no longer do it. We rather take it to the next term of the government if we should win. Eric, the question that somebody will ask is that this was in the budget. This was a projection. You had planned to make it, to give them that interchange. And at some point, you change your mind. So what will make me believe you today if you come and tell me that you have made projections that you are going to do roads, you are going to do that, you are going to do that? I don't believe you. Because the president told us that he was going to give us 88 hospitals in 1 year. We did not see even a stone being put on even a parcel of land. Okay? Like this, even this studio size, we did not even see it. Now you've said us that we're going to bring 111. And 88 in the now 111. It's not possible.
So the hope.
I don't have any hope in it. Okay. I need to be honest. I don't have any hope in it because the past has not. I mean, we could have some kind of hope based on the past. What you have done yesterday, that will tell us that the saying now in tree that you basically once we do not see anything positive from yesterday, what shows that today, whatever you are saying, you're going to do it?
There's another issue that came up, and perhaps I will start with you and then end with him, and then we'll move on to other subjects.
Okay.
The Speaker of Parliament in his presentation, before Oseiche Mensah Bonsu presented the budget, he sent a signal that perhaps if government is listening, there is an aspect of the budget which is capping allocations to the judiciary and the legislature. And then he was very passionate in his presentation that he's not going to tolerate it because these are equally very important arms of government, and so it cannot be capped. And then after the presentation of the budget, he re-emphasized that point. Now, what is the significance of the comment or the signal he's sending? Because it looks like, so the executive is taking what it wants to please itself, so much allocation to the presidency, to Ministry of Communications, to other sectors of the economy. And now the judiciary and the legislature are equally asking for enough share of the cake for the operations. And then there are other parts of the economy, including MMDAs, which don't get anything at all. If you look at the allocation for the Office of the Special Prosecutor, I understand it was made allocation for only 2 office staff, for example. How does this play into people in authority trying to annex what they want and how much they want and leave all of us to our fate?
You know, the saying is that what is good for the goose is as well good for the gander. If the presidency did not see the need to cap their allocation, why do they want to cap the allocation to the judiciary or the legislature? Are they not as equal as you? They are. You understand? They are. So I agree with the speaker that he should not tolerate it. He said he's not going to tolerate it, and I agree that he should not tolerate it. He should not entertain that. If the presidency did not see the need to cap their own budget, and don't forget, at most by July, they will come again for more. Media review will come. They'll come and ask for more.
Okay.
And then, so if you could not cap your own, why do you want to cap somebody's own? Release it. At least now we know that we are all chopping. So chop for
what about me? the average Ghanaian. Where do I also get my share?
I can see my very good friend is on heat.
It's on heat.
It's on heat.
Those days when we're doing agree, we'll send him to a cage to release the heat.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we have to be fair to this government a bit. He asks, I know there are rhetorical questions he asked, and it's fair that we also mentioned that for COVID, I mean, COVID is so ravaging to the effect that all economies in the world are introducing austerity measures.
You see, this COVID thing, when I hear it, I don't know.
Real.
See, in the US, they were able to dip their hands into their own resources and raise $1.3 or so trillion to cushion the people. Here we are talking about COVID.
Each household is getting
more than $1 billion.
And I'm telling you,
we have borrowed $1 billion. We have taken 100 million. We have raised money internally just to spend on COVID. Ideally, because that 1 billion came outside what you had planned for, and you were using it for the expenses. And the $100 million going as part of the expenses, going into the stabilization fund, taking money. Why would you say that all these external income that have come in, which you didn't plan for, all of a sudden, that money and how it was used is not part of the conversation?
And they're giving
us. Maybe I'm ignorant, but it's good for you to help us.
The budget of US. US is going in for a loan of $2.3 trillion.
From where?
Thank you. the same place you are going to. The same place are going to. The IMF and the World Bank. Okay. The same place. And even from bilateral arrangement. US is going to use $1.9 trillion.
So is it now
interventions? No, you see, it's not like, you see, we are talking about, I mean, don't put Ghana in the context of US.
No, I'm just asking the question that, is it good to borrow now?
I know what, I mean, this is a sarcastic question. I understand.
Don't answer.
Because I know why he's asking that, because some time back, this same government mentioned that, no, some government was overborrowing.
Thank you.
So you see, to get to a stage.
69 million.
To get to a stage that we wouldn't, no party will use borrowing for political gains. Like now, today, nobody can use petroleum products prices for politicking.
Or even dollars.
What? No. It has come to bear that the average Ghanaian understands the interplay of the economic activities and variables when it comes to some of these issues. Okay, so what I want to say is that, you see, COVID has affected every economy globally. So I wouldn't.
You were speaking to the capping issue.
Yeah, to the capping issue. For the capping, I mean, these are politics, okay? Where was the speaker when this government capped even provision to get fund?
This is the Assembly Common Fund, for
Yes,
example.
yes.
I was then a member of Parliament.
Yes. These are policies that were introduced to...
That one was not directly affecting him.
No, so now this one is going to... So why is he talking about? So because we are not talking about austerity measures just to ensure that our economy is a little bit back to track. And it means everyone has to tighten its belt.
But he raises the point that if the president is not
that's a strong point. So the presidency must also cap if they are capping others, just to minimize and manage cost.
We had a president who was, sacrificing 10% of his salary alongside his ministers to help Ghana.
Yes.
We are in COVID. The president said we are in crisis.
Yes.
It's true, we know.
Yeah.
Why is he not also giving us this kind of things to also
They've cut down the number of ministerial appointees.
People were bashing him. Got the 130 or 120 something that we had, they did nothing. Health minister was able to tell us that 4 years of his government, we didn't even have one district hospital. When the question was posed to him about district hospitals that they have built, he was listing cheap compounds. I didn't know how those two correlate.
But you see, once again, it's also important to note that I just want to be fair to this government to a large extent.
No, you're not being fair to him, but you know sometimes if you pamper them too much, they will sit down idle without doing anything. So it's good that we hit them so that they will reckon that yes, they need to work.
Let him land on the fairness, and let me go through a few rhetorical questions. We'll be taking a break after his submission. When we come back, there is a textbook that is generating a lot of controversy. The MP for Norton has issued a piece that they will summon the Minister for Education to Parliament to come and answer questions why there will be a deliberate attempt to alienate a group of people or embarrass them by indoctrinating our children right from infancy. Then Daniel Domlivo, it is trending on social media that he's grabbed a job, and that is a slap on the face of those who wanted to embarrass him. Is that true? We'll be looking at that. But you wanted to land. Should we go for a break, or you want to land?
Oh, I think I've made my point.
He's made his point. Yeah. Grateful for the time.
Yeah.
When we return, we'll continue the conversation.
Peace of mind is very essential in your journey to success. For Akwesi Papa, peace of mind means having a proper covering over his family. Literally. For Araba, aka Injection Mama, it's about having the funds to complete her advanced nursing course. And as for Corporal Odami, it's as simple as reporting on time for his shifts. Sometimes all you need is a simple push. At Needs Microfinance, we have tailor-made loan packages for salaried workers under the Controller General's Department. With the low interest rate and quick wahala-free process, you are guaranteed of a timely solution to get back that peace of mind, literally in 30 minutes. Needs Microfinance. Growing with you.
Welcome back. This is TVXYZ Morning Update, the newspaper review segment. We are live on Wizard TV, Facebook, YouTube, TVXYZ, Facebook, YouTube, and your TV channel if you are watching us from home. Call a friend 0556999999. I have a number of text messages. Just before we wrapped up, there's an aspect that came up. We spent 1 minute on it each. That why will government do a banking cleaning exercise, spend over 15 billion in the name of paying those whose capital were locked up, whether they are fully paid, billion. 21 billion. Yeah. Whether they were paid or not is another question, because a lot of them were agitating that the monies have not been paid. Those who caused the banking mess are living in their trasacos and these mansions and walking about free. You know the names. And then after the elections, government is coming to levy me and you in one way or the other to come and clean the mess, when those who created it or may have chopped the money deliberately are working free. Is it fair? Let me ask you same question. Is it fair?
It's unfortunate. In fact, it's unfortunate that we are where we are today. But you see, the exercise was necessary. I mean, no two ways about that. Probably people will ask questions on why, because some of the banks were even
under 1 minute.
Institutions were even bankrupt. I mean, the data. I mean, we have data. Now, my major concern has to do with those who caused it, the customers as well as the owners and all that. After reorganizing the banks, those who owe, we know them. Are they paying?
Okay, so let's leave it as a question, because another day this conversation will come up. Is it fair, especially when we know that some of the banks were deliberately closed and those cases are in court and we are being levied to clean the mess?
Eric, I think I told you my stand. But now, let me reiterate it again.
Don't.
I am.
Reiterate it in 30 seconds. Let me go.
I don't support that whole banking restructure that was done. Because I know some banks that take a bank like Papa Kosindu's banks.
GN Bank.
GN Bank. He took
and
time
Heritage Bank is also
money
foul
to publish all persons who were owing his bank in the daily graphic, which included even government institutions. The question is, if they had paid him as needed, would he have failed to meet the target?
And has government gone for the money as we speak?
Thank you.
I've answered the last part of your question. Thank you for that. I'll read a few text messages. This one says 1% COVID levy won't pay. When other countries are giving its citizens stimulus package, MPP government is taking taxes. The amount of money lost on corruption can boost the economy. Where is the $1 million COVID-19 funds? I'm sure it's 1 billion from Abladi in Takrady. This one says, okay, that's the same text message. Sorry. This one says, from Correct Score, Zachariah says, the naysayers and the hypocrites have cursed themselves and must render an apology to Mahama. Nanado described ESLA as a nuisance tax. Today, he's taking 20% from it. Mary's bad deal and the Mahama. Today, it's going to serve the Ashantis. God bless John Dramani Mahama. The text message is long, so I'll truncate it there. This one says, Abdul Basit in Zongo in Kumasi says, greetings to the number one gentleman of the nation, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo Boniface Abubakar. No, your message should just go straight to the point, but if it's greetings, it becomes difficult. The caretaker minister spoke about suspension of vehicle income tax for trotro and taxi in the budget, tax stamp waiver, tax arrears for December 2020. Let's support the good news. Truncated there, so I've read part of your message. This one says, Mr. Secretary, that's always, I'll be doing more. People are calling and it's affecting what I'm doing, but let me see if I can read this particular message and then end it there, unfortunately. So I'll go back to the text messages along the line. Please don't call, just send us your WhatsApp messages, I'll read them. Now, they'll pop on the screen when we are having our conversation over the weekend.
Yeah.
A textbook, I've seen book 3, book 4.
Yeah. And
in summary, the content is not, it's offensive.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you have seen that book, but I think on the screen is one of those books, book 3. Yeah. And then one of them talks about a tribe, and it's on the screen. You can read. I believe that they can keep it on the screen for a while you continue your conversation. Yeah. How did you receive the news?
In fact, Eric, I am a proud Ewe from the Volta region. And the first time I read this, I felt offended. And it would have been so shameful if my children have to read this. And in fact, fortunately, they've not read it. And yes, they've not read it. I felt so offended by this. I didn't believe it initially until I made some few contacts to know that yes, indeed, it's part of the books that
have been
approved. And in fact, little did I know that I even come from, my fathers come from Niger. This is not funny. I mean, this is one country that we live in.
And it's talking about the history of Ghana. Is it an attempt to rewrite history or alienate a group of Ghanaians?
But once again, I think there was a statement this morning. I don't know how authentic it is.
Yes, I have the statement.
I don't know how authentic it is.
I think it is authentic.
Yeah.
And the statement apparently apologizes to Ghanaians for the content.
What it means, then I think GS must set up. It's not fair to Ewes especially. Already there is this suspicion which is being created. We have this Togoland issue just recently, and then just a few days ago, we have an auditor who is a Ghanaian went on leave and came back as a Togolese. And some of this doesn't augur well for me, especially as an Ewe who lives in Ghana, who was born in Ghana, and who was bred and brought up as a Ghanaian, like any other average Ghanaian. This would not be fair to my tribe. And if GS is listening to us, they should know that they are dealing with people's heritage. As a Ghanaian, I won't take it for you to write such history which is not even reflective of the truths, the reality. When did Ewes come from Niger? When did we? I thought they said we come from Togo. So why now?
No, maybe you are 50-50.
No, this picture should not be created. And I think it's time we take a second look at some.
Yeah, so that is why the book will say Ewes are inward looking, because you have looked on this. I'm using it, and I'll say it. In this nonsense over the past few years, and the inward looking Ewes are quiet, and you have looked on while they've described you as Togolese. They've ridiculed you, they've embarrassed you, and you don't have the Ewe community standing up to face those who are propagating this, and you are burying your anger in a book that was published.
Okay, in fact, for me, nobody has ever referred to me as an inward-looking person, to be frank with you, and it is just unfortunate that it has emerged in a book that will be read by the young ones that we are training to become. What are we creating? But once again, as I said, I don't want. It is good a statement has been made, and GS will have to also come out with a statement, because the one I read was, I think, from the publisher.
And then I've seen two statements. One is coming from the that's NACA.
NACA, yeah.
There's the National, what's the full name? National Council for Curriculum and Assessment. Has also issued a statement. I have two statements, but let me take your reaction before I read the statement. How did it come to you?
Well, I wasn't surprised. You know why? Again, permit me to speak to you. You say, as someone near dancing, you need to dance. Some few months back, we had a senior member of the New Patriotic Party in the person of Katie Yamot describing the people of Ketu South or something. Is it South or not?
Ketu South.
Ketu South. As what? Togolese. They are not from Ghana. Just some few days ago, Auditor General went on leave. Several things happened. For the first time in the history of Ghana, I didn't know that even when you go on leave, your door locks must be changed. I never knew that, Eric. I served in the public service for about 12 years. And I never knew that once you go on leave, by the time you come back, you must change your door locks. Has the president gone on leave before?
Yes.
When he was coming, or when he came back, was his door locks changed? Did he come for new keys?
He's there with Baumia, so Baumia
changed the door locks.
No, was taking care of the Jubilee House.
And he Dumalevo didn't have any deputy.
You move on.
Thank you.
These are questions you don't have.
Okay, I realize I've locked myself. Have you played? We used to play a certain game when we were young. We draw a square and rule lines across the
So now let me come back to the main issue. I did history in the secondary school. It was one of my electives. And history of Ghana and the tribes of Ghana has been one. Why are they trying to write new history? Why? I don't understand. No. You see, there's some kind of agenda that this government or the people in this government want to achieve. And they want to do everything to achieve that agenda. If not.
But if the inward people...
No, I'm coming, Eric. We have had the people, I mean, the Evers or the voter region as part of Ghana from Genesis to today. Is it like they didn't have any history about them and we are now writing some for them?
But if you read about the Ashanti Kingdom, if you read about the is it Songhai or whatever empire, you would understand that perhaps there is some relation where it will talk about people migrating from Mali or
Eric,
from. Isn't that what they are trying to put out?
I'm a typical Achim person, 100%. Where we are now is not where we are from. We migrated from somewhere to that place. In the olden days, these things were permissible. Wars or fights were going on. Once you're able to conquer somebody, you take over their land and so on and so forth. It's allowed. But the question I'm asking is that I did history in the secondary school for 3 good years.
It was never ended that.
So why are they trying to put in something new? That is my question. Why? Why do they want to rewrite the history? Or is it because we were told by them that those people from that area or that section or that region are not Ghanaians?
How must this be resolved?
First of all, the person who led this, who ordered for these books must be sacked. That is one. Number 2, the government, we don't, you see, where is, you mentioned an institution, what's the name? Is it
the National Curriculum, National Council for Curriculum and Assessment.
Yeah.
Let me read this. We don't have much time. Let me read the statements, 2 paragraphs each, then you land and let me read it.
Don't even worry yourself about the situation. They are coming to tell us that they are apologizing for whatever thing that they have done. We don't, you see, don't do something deliberate and come and say sorry to it. It's unfortunate.
The publisher is apologizing for the book, which it said that it was part of the new curricula.
Why is he apologizing for the book?
Wait, NACA, and it's very instructive. It says the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment has noticed that some schools, both private and public, kindergarten and primary, junior and senior high, are using unapproved books. Meanwhile, the publisher is talking about new curriculum and for which reason they went ahead and are apologizing.
You see?
Now, the arm of government, which is supposed to ensure that apart from accreditation of schools and ensuring that the content of the curriculum that is used to teach the children is trying to play some tricks by saying that, we have not approved it.
If I saw it right, the publisher, is it a Sampa publication?
No, I think it's a, okay, I'm not sure.
That's it on the screen.
Badun Kansan, thank you. Badun Kansan publication. This publisher is not just a yesterday publisher.
Yeah.
He has been in the system for a long time.
Yeah.
So if you said some schools are using unapproved books, who first of all ordered them to print? Isn't it government?
Most especially when GES has been very consistent by saying that schools must only procure approved books and
approved books.
Yeah.
Why will headmasters of private and public schools?
It is not possible. I mean, they are all going to write an exam that is going to be set up by WAEC or whatever. So if they go to use books or go to read things that are not within the curricula, what exams are they going to answer?
He wanted to come in. Let him.
It's not even allowed.
It's unfortunate, as I mentioned. I think the way forward. Those books should be withdrawn with immediate effect, and then if there's any sanctions, I mean,
withdrawing the books alone is not even know. They should punish the person who authorized for that.
And I also want to come in here. Probably it may not be an agenda by the government. Okay, it may be a hiccup by some publisher. So I wouldn't want us to conclude.
No, I use the agenda from the grounds that they have made us know.
My good brother, you see, I'm very particular with some of those things because let's tackle the issue by depoliticizing it. Okay.
I've read a comment that said that there was a time in our history where names were being changed, holidays were being cancelled, other names were being introduced and forced on us as the true owners of the country and so on. And so if it is dovetailing into these developments, there's room to believe what he has said.
Oh, that's why I say, see, it is, it is not right now because GES is an independent, agency on its own in charge of education at the lower level.
Under the Ministry of Education headed by a politician.
Thank you.
Who has a responsibility.
Eric, I know that. Eric, you still wanted to sway us into that political...
No, but I'm only saying facts.
The country has gotten to a stage that when something happens and you immediately attach politics to it, it instigates those political sentiments in us. Let's look at it from the point of view where we know that, yes, indeed, a publisher has done something. An agency has not been...
the agency here is saying that it is not approved. And so we don't know anything about it.
So there's some level of negligence in here. Somebody has not done his work well by editing whatever has been presented for approval.
You see, John, where I disagree with the positioning of if you bring politics in, it takes away the substance of the issue, and therefore we cannot look at it dispassionately. Is this? If you go to other jurisdictions, the Minister for Education perhaps will say, "I'm embarrassed, I'm resigning." Is that politics or is good governance?
No, I mean.
So it is about time that there are issues that we handle because
we haven't
people are paid by the taxpayer to deal with them.
We haven't gotten there yet.
We haven't gotten where?
To the level of saying that
a minister will resign because of these things.
You think so? My good brother, let's tackle the issue. Who did this? Who's responsible? Once you escalate it to the political level, then people start taking stands. Are you okay? So let's get this book withdrawn from the system because it's so offensive to my tribe. It's so offensive to where I come from. And this is the first time of hearing some of these things. Personally, I mean, throughout my life, I grew up with non-Ewes. And nobody has described me as an inward-looking person. Even though I have read. Nobody.
Okay. And we have 2 minutes, unfortunately.
So the way forward, government should, I know the new Minister of Education probably is listening to us, Educhum, a very, very objective and open-minded person.
Yeah.
This book should be immediately withdrawn from the system. And then the people, the culprit, must be punished.
Okay.
If licenses will be withdrawn from such publishers, because see, it's a tendency of bringing confusion in this country.
Okay, we don't have much time.
I don't want us to blame the publisher. I want us to blame the person who instructed the publisher.
Okay, so maybe
the publisher was only acting on instructions.
Maybe we'll find it in this statement. And this is from Samuel Okujetu Ablakwa.
All right.
It says, this is to notify all concerned that I have filed an urgent parliamentary question requesting the Minister for Education to appear before the House and respond to 2 bigoted publications on the issue. I won't read the rest. It summarizes it.
All right.
Now to more text messages. This one says, from Fuseni, Kifi Sani, Asamanka say, good morning, Eric, and your panelists. Eric, with all due respect, some of you media allow the incompetent government to be lying to us. Good morning. This text message says, it's from Kwabenya, Eben from Kwabenya. I think it's high time we shun the tribalism and forge ahead as one people. The writer has done us more harm than good, and I don't think it's good for all of us. Didn't Naka saw it in the first place before publishing? Ghana is sitting on a time bomb. This text message says, let me quickly read it. It says, Parliament should not dare invite brilliant Sami Jemfi. We are strongly behind him. From Francis Kofi from Lower Manya sent this text message. This one says, I am down below from Bremso Apeuska. The budget read last week was full of repetition, and it's a mark of an underperforming regime which has nothing to show. The assertion that this government has managed the debt portfolio better than the previous government is a typical mockery of intellect. I'll cut short some of the messages to be able to read more. I'm enjoying your show, Albert from Ashaiman. So the last one here says, okay, this a different text message. Unfortunately, this is how we want to end our show. I did this with John Kweku Mensah Mauto. He's the Dean of Students, School of Graduate Studies.
I thought you said the Malevo's appointment.
The time is up.
Oh,
okay, just 30 seconds.
At least you just congratulate him.
Yeah, okay.
See, I say a born out of the
Yo. John, can you say that in ever? Or say, or can she?
I can't say that. If I didn't understand, the.
So, John Kweku okay, so you end the rest outside. John Kweku Mensah Mauto is the Dean of Students, University of Professional Studies. That's Dean of Graduate, School of Graduate Studies at the University of Professional Studies, Accra. And Alexander Chumberema is a legal practitioner. If I didn't read your text message, I'm sure we'll acknowledge and respond to you. Thank you. Abena is not here, but she's always sitting by me, giving me all the support. To Abuaje and the production team, to the production team for Ways TV, and for all of you for joining us. We are grateful. See you again tomorrow morning.